The necklace that shouldn't exist it was a quiet evening in San Francisco. The kind that wrapped the city in a blanket of soft orange light. Sundar Pichai had just finished a long day, filled with back-to-back meetings, strategy, discussions, and what felt like an endless parade of decisions that carried the weight of the world. He decided to take a walk to clear his mind, a rare moment of solitude he hadn't allowed himself in months. As he stepped out of the building. Leaving behind the sharp lines of glass and steel, the cool breeze gently brushed against his face. He didn't take his usual route. Something nudged him to go down a side street lined with little shops, some closed, some glowing dimly from within. There was a small bookstore tucked between a coffee shop and a thrift store. It reminded him of his college days in India, when life was simpler and dreams were just whispers of hope. Sundar pushed open the creaky door of the thrift shop, drawn in by something he couldn't name. The bell above the door jingled, announcing his presence, but no one seemed to notice. He slowly walked past shelves of old cameras, forgotten toys, faded paintings, and dusty books. Then, just as he was about to leave, his eyes landed on something that froze him in place. Across the room, near a counter, stood a woman in her early 40s. She had a tired look in her eyes, and her clothes suggested she was struggling to make ends meet, but it wasn't her appearance that shocked him. It was the necklace she wore. Sundar's breath caught in his throat. It was a delicate gold chain, old and slightly tarnished, with a small pendant shaped like a jasmine flower. It was unmistakable. His mother had worn that exact necklace every single day until the day she died. He had held it in his hand during her final rites. It was buried with her, or so he thought. He stared, unable to speak. Memories came flooding back, his mother's laughter, the way she held him close during storms, how she always touched that necklace when she prayed. It wasn't just jewelry. It was a part of her. And now here it was, hanging from the neck of a complete stranger. The woman turned and caught him staring. She raised an eyebrow, half curious, half defensive. Sundar quickly composed himself and walked up to her. "Excuse me," he said, his voice soft, careful not to startle her. "That necklace, where did you get it?" Her expression changed instantly. She clutched the pendant with her fingers and took a step back. "Why do you ask?" "I'm sorry," he said quickly. "I didn't mean to upset you. It's just that necklace looks exactly like one my mother used to wear. It's very special to me." She hesitated, her eyes flickering with something: fear, sadness, guilt. She looked around the shop, then whispered, "Can we talk outside?" They stepped onto the sidewalk. The street was almost empty, the quiet humming with tension. "I found it," she said finally, not meeting his eyes. "A few years ago. In a box. Someone left it behind at a shelter where I was staying." "A shelter?" Sundar repeated, his voice barely audible. "Yes," she said. "I was homeless back then. Still kinda am, if I'm being honest. But I had nothing. And when I opened that box, I don't know why, but I felt like it was meant for me. Like it gave me strength." Sundar felt a knot form in his chest. He didn't know what to say. He didn't want to accuse her. She clearly needed help, but the timeline didn't make sense. The necklace had been buried. He was sure of it. And yet here it was, in front of him. What was the box like? He asked quietly. She frowned, trying to remember. "Wooden, kind of old, had a flower carved on top. I kept the necklace and some papers that were inside. The rest I had to throw away. I didn't have space to keep it all." "Papers?" he said sharply. "Do you still have them?" She looked at him for a long moment. "Maybe, if I didn't lose them. They're in a storage locker a friend lets me use sometimes." Sundar took out his phone. "Can I give you a ride?" "I'd really like to see them." She hesitated. "I don't know you." "You could be anyone." "You're right," he said. "My name is Sundar. I work in tech. You can Google me." "But this is personal. This is about my mother, please." After a moment of searching his face, she nodded slowly. "Okay, but if you try anything funny, I'll scream." He smiled faintly. "I understand." They drove in silence. Sundar's mind was spinning. Questions tumbled over each other. How could something buried with his mother end up in a shelter? In America? How did this woman end up with it? Was it even the same necklace, or just a coincidence? The storage locker was in a rough part of town. The woman, her name was Tara, led him to a small rusted unit. She unlocked it and began rummaging through a plastic container full of clothes. Books and old papers, finally. She pulled out a folded piece of paper and handed it to him. Sundar opened it carefully. His heart stopped. It was a handwritten letter, and it was in his mother's handwriting. He recognized the gentle curved script instantly. She had written it in Tamil, their native language. His hands trembled as he read it. To whoever finds this, I hope this necklace brings you the strength it gave me. I wore it through every hardship, every joy, every loss. It belonged to my mother, and now I pass it on to the world. May it remind you that no matter how broken things seem, kindness can still grow. Sundar's knees nearly gave out. The letter was dated 3 years after his mother had died. This can't be, he whispered. Tara looked confused. Is that from your mom? Yes, he said, eyes wide with disbelief. But she died in 2005. This letter is dated 2008. Tara went pale. What are you saying? Sundar stared at the letter like it might dissolve in his hands. Everything he believed, everything he remembered, was it wrong? Was it manipulated? Or had someone lied to him about his mother's death? His voice was barely more than a whisper. This changes everything. And then, as he stood there, trying to make sense of the impossible, a dark figure stepped out from behind a nearby dumpster. Sundar didn't see him at first, but Tara did. Her face went white. We need to go. Now. What? Why? She grabbed his arm. He's the reason. I never told anyone about the necklace. He followed me once before. I think he knows something too. And if he sees you with me, but it was too late. The man was already walking toward them, his eyes locked on Sundar. Sundar turned, heart pounding as the man stepped into the light, and what he saw made his blood run cold, because the man looked exactly like someone from his past, someone who wasn't supposed to be alive. Asterisk shadows of a living past. Man stepped forward slowly, his gaze cold and deliberate. Sundar couldn't move. His mind was trying to catch up, to make sense of what he was seeing. The man wasn't just familiar, he was someone Sundar had mourned. Someone who had vanished decades ago and was presumed dead. He was a childhood neighbor who had disappeared during a political riot in India. A man who used to sit on their porch, drink tea with Sundar's mother, and tell stories of resilience and loyalty. His name had been BJ. Sundar hadn't heard that name spoken in years. BJ had been a family friend, almost an uncle, someone who was always around during his early childhood. He had disappeared during the chaos of the 1991 Madras protests. No one had heard from him again. And now, here he was, standing in a dark alley in San Francisco, with the same eyes, the same weathered face, though older and lined with pain. You? Sundar breathed, his voice hoarse. How is this possible? BJ's eyes darted toward Tara, then back to Sundar. We shouldn't talk here, he said. His voice was lower, gruffer than Sundar remembered. It's not safe. Not for her, not for you. Tara pulled Sundar back. No, I don't trust him. The last time I saw him, he scared me half to death. Followed me for weeks. I asked to change shelters. BJ held up his hands. I'm sorry for that. Truly. I had to be sure. I didn't mean harm. I needed to know where the necklace ended up. Why? Sundar demanded. Why follow her? Why now? And where'd that letter come from? My mother, she died in 2005, but the letter is dated 2008. Who's lying here? BJ looked at Sundar, a flicker of pain flashing across his face. It's not a lie. But you're right, your mother didn't die in 2005. She disappeared. Sundar staggered backward like he'd been punched in the chest. What are you saying? Let's go somewhere safe, BJ said. Then I'll tell you everything. The three of them sat in a small 24-hour diner a few blocks away. It smelled of burnt coffee and fried onions, but the flickering neon sign in the window offered some strange comfort. They sat in a booth in the back corner, out of earshot from the sleepy waitress refilling cups with cold coffee. Vi leaned in close. There's a part of your family story you were never told, Sundar, and I know because I was there. Not just back in India, but here too, watching from a distance. Sundar clenched his jaw. You disappeared during the riots. We thought you were dead. PJ nodded. I was almost. I was arrested for being at the wrong place at the wrong time. Taken without a record. No trial. I escaped years later, but by then your family had moved on. I tried to reconnect, but your father didn't want me involved anymore. He said too much had changed. Sundar blinked, his throat tightening. My father never told me any of that. He wouldn't have. He was trying to protect you, Vijay said. But there's more. Your mother, she didn't die in 2005. That's the story your father gave you. But she wasn't dead. She had gone into hiding. Why? Sundar's voice cracked with disbelief. Why would she do that? BJ reached into his coat and pulled out another folded paper. He placed it gently on the table. Sundar opened it with trembling fingers. It was a photograph. A blurry, grainy image of his mother, older, thinner, but unmistakably her, standing beside a child in what looked like a community kitchen. The timestamp read July 2008. She left because someone was after her, Vijay said. Someone from her past. She stumbled upon something during her work at the hospital in Madurai. Something dangerous. A black market operation involving organ trafficking. When she tried to report it, they threatened her life. She came to me for help. I got her out of the country. Organ trafficking? Tara echoed, shocked. Your mom was involved in stopping something like that? Sundar could barely hear her. His world was spinning. But I went to her funeral. I saw her face. What you saw, Vijay said softly, was a closed casket. Your father insisted on it, told you she looked too frail. It wasn't her in there. But why? Sundar whispered. Why would he lie to me? Because they threatened you. Too, Vijay said. Your father made a deal to protect you. He kept a lie alive. He couldn't risk them finding out she was still alive. The necklace, she kept it until the very end. Then she gave it to me to pass on when the time was. Right, I lost track of it after I was attacked. The box ended up in that shelter. That's how she reached out again through that necklace and that letter. It was her way of telling you she was still out there. Or at least she had been. Tara sat back in the booth, stunned. So, she really was alive? And you're saying she died later? We don't know when exactly, Vijay said. His voice heavy. But I spent the last decade searching for traces of her, and then I saw the necklace. On her, he nodded toward Tara. I knew it had resurfaced. And if it had, then someone else might be looking for it too. Sundar buried his face in his hands. He had built his life on facts, data, and logic. But none of this made sense. He remembered the prayers, the grieving, the feeling of loss that had defined so much of his journey. And now it was unraveling like thread pulled from a tightly woven fabric. I don't know what to believe anymore. He whispered Vijay, placed a hand on his shoulder. There's more. Much more. And not all of it will be easy to hear. But you need to know, because the people who chased your mother, they never stopped. And I think they've started looking again. Looking for what? Sundar asked slowly. Vijay, single quotes, SIs turned hard. For you. Sundar looked up. Me? You're not just a symbol of technology and innovation, Vijay said. You're her son. And she knew something that could destroy very powerful people. If they find out you're trying to uncover the truth, they'll come for you, just like they did for her. Tara looked between them, visibly shaken. So, what do we do now? BJ pulled a faded notebook from his coat. It was worn, stained, and tied with a strip of cloth. He slid it across the table to Sundar. This was your mother's journal, he said. She kept notes, names, dates, everything she uncovered. I don't know if it still matters. Maybe the people involved are long gone, or maybe they've just gotten more powerful. But if you really want to know what happened to her, this is where you start. Sundar picked up the journal with trembling hands. The cover had her handwriting on it. A single word written in Tamil-truth. He opened. The first page dot and froze dot inside was a newspaper clipping, carefully glued in. It showed a picture of a man smiling, well-dressed, standing next to a hospital director. The headline read, "Local surgeon leads funding campaign for international expansion." Sundar's blood turned to ice. He knew the man. He had met him recently at a private tech conference. He was the keynote speaker's guest, a billionaire investor, and now a ghost from his mother's nightmare. "I know him," Sundar said, voice shaking. "That's who your mother was running from," Vijay whispered, "and he's still out there." The journal shook in Sundar's hands. Everything suddenly felt more dangerous, more real. He had stumbled into something much bigger than he imagined. Something that didn't just threaten his peace, but his life. "We need to be careful," Tara said. "If he's watching, then he might know about the necklace." "He might know about you." Sundar looked around the diner. The flickering lights, the tired waitress, the silence. Everything felt too quiet. "Men, we don't have time," he said. Vi. Jay nodded. "We need to leave the city. There's someone we need to see, someone who helped your mother, someone who disappeared right after she did." "Who?" Sundar asked. Vijay leaned in and whispered the name. And when he did, Sundar's eyes widened in shock, because the name he spoke belonged to someone Sundar had trusted for years. Someone on his executive board, someone who knew his schedule, his routines, even his weaknesses. The betrayal hit like a punch to the gut. "We have to move," Sundar said, standing up. "We leave tonight." But just as they were walking toward the door of the diner, a loud bang echoed from outside. The windows trembled. Tara screamed. Vi pushed them down behind the counter as glass shattered. Sundar's ears rang as he crawled for cover, his heart pounding in his chest. Outside, a car screeched away into the night. Someone had found them, and they weren't just watching anymore. They were making their first move. Asterisk. Echoes from the Farelli diner was silent, except for the soft, static hum of broken neon signs and the quiet sobs of Tara trying to gather herself. Pieces of glass crunched under Sundar's shoes as he slowly stood up from behind the counter. The window was completely shattered. The bullet had missed them by inches. If they had been standing just a moment longer, one of them wouldn't have made it. Vijay single quotes. S breathing was heavy as he crouched beside the counter, scanning the shadows beyond the glass with sharp eyes trained from years of living on the edge. His fingers curled tightly around the pocket knife, though Sundar knew it would have done little against whoever had fired that shot. Still, BJ's instincts had saved them again. Sundar moved carefully toward Tara, who was holding her arms protectively around her chest, trembling. "You okay?" he asked gently, kneeling down beside her. She nodded, swallowing back fear, but didn't speak. He turned to Vijay. "They know we're digging. We have to get out of here." AJ gave a grim nod. "They're not just watching anymore." This was a message. Sundar picked up the notebook again, holding it like it was the most fragile thing in the world. He could barely believe the weight of what was inside. His mother's handwriting, her thoughts, her investigation. It was like hearing her voice again after so many years. But there was also something terrifying in the realization that she hadn't just been hiding. She had been hunted. And now, so was he. They left the diner quickly, sticking to alleyways and avoiding cameras. Vijay's car was parked 4 blocks away, a beat-up sedan with dusty windows and mismatched plates. It wasn't much, but it was inconspicuous, and that made it invaluable. Once inside, Sundar sat in the back seat with the notebook on his lap, flipping through the pages. Each one held fragments of her journey notes on surgeries, dates, strange financial records scribbled beside names he didn't recognize. But one name stood out again and again. Dr. Nilesh Rajan. He remembered the man's face from the newspaper. Clipping in part 2. And now, as he stared at the pages, more connections began to fall into place. Dr. Rajan wasn't just a surgeon. He was once a family friend. Sundar had only met him a few times as a child, and never after his mother's death. Now it made sense. His mother had known something about him. Something dangerous. They drove through the night, past the city lights and into the countryside, where the fog settled low and thick like a blanket. Hours passed in silence, broken only by the occasional turn of a page in a notebook dot just before sunrise. Vijay pulled over in front of an old farmhouse. Surrounded by dense trees, it looked abandoned, windows dark, roof sagging, paint peeling from the sides like bark from a dead tree. But Sundar sensed it wasn't as empty as it seemed. This is the place? Yes, Vijay. I nodded. It's where your mother stayed. For a few weeks before she vanished again. Someone helped her disappear from here. Someone she trusted. And if she left anything behind, it'll be inside. They stepped out of the car. The morning chill bit through Sundar's clothes. The air smelled of dew and earth. Every step he took toward the house felt heavier, as though the land itself was holding on to secrets it wasn't ready to share. The front door creaked open. The inside was musty, filled with the scent of old books and memories. The floor groaned under their feet. Sunlight streamed through cracks in the wood, casting thin golden lines across dust-covered furniture and forgotten photographs. Sundar moved carefully through the house, his eyes scanning every surface. On a bookshelf in the corner of what looked like a study, he saw a picture frame lying face down. He picked it up and wiped away the dust dot. It was a photo of his mother. She was smiling, really smiling with her arm around a woman Sundar didn't recognize. They were standing in front of a mobile clinic. Behind them, painted on the side of the truck, were the words, Hope Health Outreach. He turned the photo over. On the back, in familiar handwriting, it said, Mira and Maya, May 2006. Yeah, Sundar. Whispered. Vijay appeared beside him. That's the woman I told you about, the one who helped her escape. She used to work for the same hospital, but later started her own mobile clinic. She vanished shortly after this photo was taken. Sundar stared at the picture. Then we find her. She might be the last person who saw my mother alive. There's more, Vijay said. Your mother left something here. I don't know what it was. She said it was a backup, just in case. They began to search the study more thoroughly. Sundar pulled out drawers, checked under floorboards, behind books. Nothing. Tara wandered into the room, her voice quiet. This place feels like it's holding its breath. Yeah, Sundar said. Like it's waiting. Then, behind the desk, he noticed a warped panel in the wall. Something about it felt off. He pressed his fingers against it. It gave way with a soft pop, revealing a hollow space behind it. His hand reached in and pulled out a sealed envelope. He turned it over. To my son, when the truth finds him. His breath caught. His fingers trembled. She knew, he whispered. She knew one day I'd come looking. He opened the envelope. Inside was a short letter and a USB drive. The letter was written in her unmistakable style. My dear Sundar, I don't know when or if you'll ever read this. But if you do, it means you found the necklace. And if that's true, then I'm probably gone. Not dead, maybe, but out of reach. I couldn't let you live under the weight of the truth. Not when the world needed you to rise, to lead. But now you're ready. You remember Dr. Rajan, don't you? He was once your uncle's friend. He used his position at the hospital to start a covert organ trade taking from the poor, the sick, even from children. I discovered it by accident. And when I tried to stop it, they tried to silence me. I had to run. Maya helped me vanish. The USB contains everything I could gather. Evidence, recordings, ledgers. Enough to bring them down if you're willing to risk everything. I never stopped loving you. I only stepped away so you could live. Now, if you're reading this, it's your choice. End it. Or walk away. With all my love, mom. Sundar held the letter against his chest. The room felt like it was spinning. His heart hurt in a way he hadn't felt in years. Not from betrayal. Not from fear, but from love so powerful it had protected him without his knowing. We need to see what's on that drive. He said finally. V. IJAY nodded. I know a place. But we have to be careful. If they find out we have this... His words hung heavy in the air. They left the farmhouse just as the sun rose, casting soft orange light over the fog-covered hills. They were driving down a narrow path when Sundar's phone buzzed. A message. Thought it was from an unknown number. Stop digging. Or next time we don't miss. Sundar stared at the screen. The fear was real, but so was the fire burning inside him now. He had found the truth. Now. He had to decide what to do with it, but just as he turned to tell Vijay, a loud crash shook the vehicle. The car jerked sideways. They had been hit. Sundar's head slammed against the window as the world went dark. Asterisk fragments of the broken road rain fell in steady drops, tapping against the shattered window like fingers trying to wake the world. Sundar opened his eyes slowly, vision blurred, ears ringing. The world around him was tilted, spinning, unreal. Pain pulsed through his skull as he reached up instinctively, feeling blood trickle down from a cut on his forehead. The car was on its side. The windshield was cracked in a spiderweb pattern. Smoke curled from the dashboard. In the distance, a low hum buzzed, maybe from a streetlight, maybe from his own mind still trying to reboot. For a moment, he couldn't move. Everything hurt. Then came the sound. A soft groan. Tara, he gasped, forcing himself to shift. Vijay. The weight of the moment dragged against his bones, but he pushed through it. He crawled across the twisted back seat, glass biting into his palms, heart pounding harder with every second of silence. Finally, he found Tara curled in the front seat, her arm pinned under the console, her lips moving faintly. I'm here, Sundar whispered. I'm here, don't move. She blinked slowly. They hit us. I saw lights. Sure, just stay awake, he said, his voice shaking. You're going to be okay. He looked for Vijay. He found him outside the vehicle. His body had been thrown through the open driver's side door. He lay motionless on the wet asphalt, one arm twisted unnaturally, blood pooling beneath him. No, Sundar whispered. Stumbling out of the car, he dropped to his knees beside Vijay and pressed trembling fingers to his neck, a pulse weak. But there. He's alive, Sundar shouted back at Tara. He's alive. Rain mixed with blood as Sundar tore off his jacket, folding it under Vijay's head, trying to stop the bleeding. Every second felt like a battle between life and death. Whoever hit them hadn't stopped. The car was gone, no headlights, no screeching tires. Just the silence of violence already done. Sundar's mind raced. The journal, the USB. The letter. They were still in the car. He scrambled back inside and found the bag wedged beneath the front seat. Miraculously, the drive was intact. He held it close to his chest like a piece of his own soul. The truth was still with him. Barely got sirens pierced the quiet minutes later. Someone must have seen the wreck, as emergency lights painted the fog. In streaks of red and blue, Sundar stood in the rain, drenched and shaking, holding on to the only pieces he had left at the hospital. Everything was chaos. Tara was wheeled away on a gurney, her eyes fluttering open just long enough to squeeze Sundar's hand. BJ was rushed into surgery. Sundar stood in the hallway, bruised and bandaged, alone for the first time since this all began. The waiting room was sterile and cold. Televisions played muted news segments about tech markets and international conflicts. None of it mattered. Not now. Not when everything he knew about his life, his family, his purpose had been torn wide open. Hours passed. A nurse finally appeared. Mr. Pichai? He stood instantly. Your friend is stable. The surgery went well. He'll need time to recover, but he made it. A breath left his lungs like a dam finally cracking. And the woman? He asked. She has a fractured wrist. And some bruising, but she's conscious. Would you like to see her? Yes, please. They led him down a quiet hallway to a small room where Tara lay under thin white sheets. Her eyes met his the second he walked in. "You okay?" he asked, sitting beside her. She gave him a weak smile. "I've had better days. Thank you," he said softly. "You stayed calm. You helped me hold it together. You saved." She whispered. "And BJ too." He looked down at his hands, still trembling. "I don't feel like a hero. I feel like a man who just watched the world unravel." She reached out and took his hand. "Your mother? She must have been an incredible woman." Sundar nodded, emotion tightening in his throat. "She was. And she didn't deserve to vanish. In fear. She deserved justice. And I'm going to give it to her." "What now?" Tara asked. He looked up, eyes clearer now. "Now we expose everything." Asterisk. Later that night, Sundar sat in a dark hotel room, the only light coming from his laptop. Screen. The USB drive clicked into place, and a folder appeared on the screen titled Truth_Archive. He opened it slowly. Inside were dozens of files, scanned documents, audio recordings, spreadsheets. One folder was labeled Black Ledger. It detailed transactions, illegally harvested organs, patients with fake identities, surgical records redacted and rewritten. Everything his mother had uncovered was here, but it was the audio files that made his blood run cold. He clicked the first one. A recorded conversation crackled to life, two men speaking in low voices. "She's seen too much." "Then take care of it. Make it look like an accident." "I don't care how. What about the kid?" "If he talks, he disappears too." The second voice was unmistakable. It was Dr. Rajan. Sundar sat in the dark, listening to clip after clip of evidence. His hands shook with anger, with grief, with a rising storm of purpose. They tried to erase her. They tried to erase him, but she had left behind. The truth. Now it was his turn to carry it forward. He sent the files to an encrypted cloud. Then he made several anonymous backups and scheduled a release to major news outlets in 72 hours. If anything happened to him, the world would know everything. And then he picked up the phone. He called a man he hadn't spoken to in over 5 years, Joseph Anders, an investigative journalist, once disgraced for reporting on government corruption, now running an independent digital news site. He had nothing to lose. And he never backed down. "Anders," Sundar said when the line picked up. "It's Sundar Pichai. I have a story for you. And it's going to blow the world on." Asterisk. Over the next 2 days, Sundar worked tirelessly. Vijay woke from surgery, still weak, but determined. Tara stayed at his side, refusing to leave him alone even once. She had gone from a stranger with a necklace to someone deeply woven into the fabric of this fight. Together, they reviewed the evidence, mapped out connections, and uncovered something even darker. The organ trafficking ring was only part of a larger operation, one that reached into politics, business, even international agencies. Dr. Rajan wasn't working alone. There was a network. And they had names now. Sundar stared at one in particular. Henry Callaway. A billionaire philanthropist, founder of a private health foundation, often seen at global summits. The same man who had once tried to recruit Sundar into an ethical health innovation fund. He had declined the offer years ago. Now he understood why. "We take them all down," Sundar said, starting with him. But just as they were preparing to go public, a delivery arrived at the hotel. No name. No sender. Just the box. Tara opened it carefully. Inside was a single item, the jasmine flower necklace, asterisk, and a handwritten note. "Stop, or next time you won't find it before the fire." Sundar's fingers curled into fists. The war had begun, and he wasn't backing down. Asterisk. The fire within the storm. The gliss sat in the center of the table, like a silent scream, a haunting echo of a past that refused to be buried. Sundar couldn't take his eyes off it. The way it glimmered under the hotel room light made his chest tighten, part grief, part fury. This wasn't just a threat. It was a message. Whoever had left it knew everything. Where he was, who he was with, and more chillingly, what the necklace meant. Tara sat across from him, her face pale, her hands trembling as she held the note that had come with it. VJ lay in the next room, still recovering, unaware of the new danger knocking at their door. The walls of the hotel suddenly felt too thin, the windows too exposed. Even the hum of the air conditioner sounded suspicious, like a whisper hiding in plain sight. "They've been inside," Sundar said, his voice flat, barely above a whisper. "They wanted us to know that." "How did they get in without triggering?" "Anything?" Tara asked, her voice just as hollow. "Because they don't need to break doors," Sundar replied, "when they already hold the keys." He turned toward the window, the city lights flickering in the distance like distant warning flares. The truth was pressing in from all sides now, no longer something hidden in journals or whispered in back alleys. It was alive. It had teeth, and it had begun to bite back. Sundar picked up the necklace carefully, almost reverently, and placed it into the small wooden box he'd carried since leaving the farmhouse. His mother's voice echoed in his head again, lines from her letter, playing on a loop. "If you're reading this, it's your choice." His choice had been made the moment he saw the stranger in the thrift store. He grabbed his laptop and opened a secure chat with Joseph Anders. Status. He typed. Seconds later, a response pinged back. Upload complete. "We go live in 2 hours," Sundar exhaled slowly. 2 hours? That was all they had left before the truth broke free and couldn't be put back in the box. 2 hours before Dr. Rhea's voice, cold, calculating, would be heard by millions. 2 hours before ledgers, reports, hospital audits, and files. Naming powerful people would be blasted across every corner of the digital world. And that meant 2 hours before those powerful people would do anything to stop it. He turned to Tara. "We need to move." She stood immediately, her instincts sharp now after everything they'd endured. "Where?" "A place they won't expect," he said. "We're not going to hide. We're going to take this straight to them." Asterisk. The private gala was held at the Pacific Summit Hotel, a place of opulence perched high on a hill with views of the entire city. The kind of place where billionaires toasted global partnerships and made decisions that changed the course of nations, all while sipping champagne that cost more than most people's rent. Sundar hadn't attended one of these events in years. He'd grown tired of empty speeches and hollow promises. But tonight, he had a different purpose. He entered the ballroom dressed in a charcoal gray suit, his face calm but unreadable. Tara followed close behind, her wrists still in a brace, her eyes scanning every face. They were surrounded by cameras, celebrities, political leaders, tech giants, all mingling under chandeliers and talking about innovation, equity, and progress. And there, at the far end of the room, stood Dr. Nilesh Rajan. Laughing. Holding a glass of wine. As if the world he'd built on suffering was something worth celebrating. Sundar clenched his fists, then let them go. This wasn't the moment to break. It was the moment to burn. He walked up to the stage. There's a scheduled panel about ethics in artificial intelligence. Sundar had been invited weeks ago, an ironic twist he hadn't appreciated until now. He hadn't RSVP'd, but his name was still printed on the evening schedule. No one questioned him as he stepped behind the podium. The host blinked in surprise. "Mr. Pichai? We weren't expecting. There's been a change of plans," Sundar said, his voice calm, amplified through the speakers. "I'd like to speak for a moment. It won't take long." People turned to listen. Conversations died down. The music faded. Sundar took a deep breath and spoke. "Tonight, I was supposed to talk about ethics in technology. But something more. Urgent demands our attention. Something that has nothing to do with algorithms and everything to do with human life." The crowd stilled. "Many years ago, my mother, Lakshmi Pichai, was declared dead. She wasn't. She had uncovered a medical conspiracy involving the illegal trade of human organs. She tried to stop it. They tried to silence her. For years, I believed she was gone, but she was alive, and she was fighting." Gasps. Confused murmurs. Dear Rajan's face turned a shade paler. "She left behind proof," Sundar continued. documents, audio recordings, ledgers, all of it. Names, dates, operations conducted under false pretenses. I have it all. And in 45 minutes, so will the world. Phones buzzed in pockets. People started to whisper. It reaches into foundations, into health ministries, into private hospitals and global investors. And yes, Sundar's eyes met Dr. Urgen's. Even into this room. Dr. Urgen stood, trembling, his wine glass clinking as it hit the table. That's slander. He barked. No, Sundar replied calmly. That's the truth. My mother paid for it with her life, and I won't let it be buried. A flurry of commotion erupted. Someone called for security. Others turned to their phones, already reading the first wave of reports as Joseph Andrews' platform went live. Headlines splashed across screens. Tech CEO exposes global organ trade ring. Secret recordings reveal hospital-led black market. Missing woman's journal unravels decades-long conspiracy. Dr. Urgen made a move towards Sundar, but was intercepted by two security guards. One of them had a phone in his hand, reading aloud the audio transcript of the first recording. His grip tightened. You're finished, he told RAJN. DRAC, contorted in rage and disbelief. This is lies. He forged it. Hey, they have your voice, the guard said. Coldly, you're done. Sundar watched as Rajan was escorted out, the crowd parting like water before him. Some guests tried to leave. Others stayed frozen, stunned by the magnitude of what had just been dropped into their world of comfort and illusions. He looked around. The room, his heart heavy but steady. He had done it. He had set the truth free. Asterisk hours later. Back in the hotel, Sundar sat with Vijay and Tara watching the fallout unfold on the news. Headlines scrolled across the screen. High-profile resignations, warrants issued, police raids on private clinics. Whistleblowers coming forward. Bijay leaned back on the couch, wincing from his stitches. Your mother would have been proud. Sundar nodded slowly. I hope so. Tara turned toward him. What now? He looked at the USB, then at the necklace in its box. Now we finish what she started. There's still one person out there who helped her vanish. The one who knew everything. Maya. If we find her, we find the last missing piece. Just then, Sundar's phone. VIBRATED. A message. I saw your speech. I've been waiting for this day. Meet me where she planted the jasmine. Sundar's hands trembled. It's her, he whispered. Maya, where? Tara asked. I think I know. He looked at Vijay, who nodded slowly. We're with you, Tara said. Sundar stood, heart pounding, breath sharp. Then we go. To the place where it all began. Where the jasmine bloomed, air was thick with the scent of rain-soaked earth as the car rolled down a winding path through the hills just outside of Madurai. It had been over 2 decades since Sundar had walked these roads, and yet the landscape was burned into his memory, each curve, each crumbling stone wall, each banyan tree heavy with time. The road ended where the forest began, and beyond that, an old stone temple peeked through the dense trees. This was the place. His mother had once brought him here as a boy, just after his exams. He remembered how she had led him by the hand, her voice soft, telling him stories of gods who guarded truth and protected the innocent. She had knelt by a patch of earth near the steps of the temple and planted a small jasmine bush with her own hands. For courage, she had whispered. Now, as Sundar stepped out of the car, that memory came rushing back like a tide. The jasmine bush was still their age, taller, but still blooming. Tiny white flowers swayed gently in the breeze, as if they had been waiting for him all this time. He stood in silence for a moment, heart pounding, eyes scanning the edge of the trees. Then a figure stepped out of the shadows. An older woman, wrapped in a simple shawl, her face lined with age and wisdom. Her hair was streaked with silver, but her eyes were sharp, alert, and filled with a quiet power. Maya. Sundar felt something rise in his throat. He took a hesitant step forward, and she did. The same. You remember? She said softly. How could I forget? He replied, She brought me here. Told me jasmine blooms where truth grows. Maya nodded. And now the truth has found its voice. They stood for a moment, letting the silence speak. Behind them, Tara and Vijay remained near the car, watching. But giving space? The forest seemed to lean in, listening. I thought you were gone, Sundar said. After she disappeared, after she left the clinic, I had to vanish, Maya said. After your mother was taken, I was next. But before she disappeared, she gave me one final message. Something she asked me to give to you. I never knew. If I'd get the chance. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small, sealed envelope. His fingers trembled as he took it. I found out the truth, he whispered. I exposed Rajan. The world knows now. It can't hide behind power. Anymore.